I'm with Jeannette Reyes, and I got to tell you, I am so excited about this interview because, I mean, let's be honest, you're TikTok famous. I mean, I know you work for Channel 5 and you're a terrific journalist, but let's be honest, you're kind of TikTok famous.
It's so weird to hear that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes, in some ways, TikTok feels like it's like an imaginary world until, you interact with people and then they come out of the TikTok world and you're like, wow, like this is real.
Okay, but I mean, people know you, like, of course, nationwide, worldwide, but aside from even Channel 5, tell me, because of course we're going to get into your journalism career. I mean, you're a real journalist too, but when you first posted on TikTok, what was the video that first got you to go viral?
Oh, the first video that went viral was my husband and I doing a play on the anchor voice. And I say that in quotations, just how anchors talk, but taken up a couple notches. And so it pretty much went, good evening, I'm Jeannette Reyes. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to have for dinner tonight. I have my colleague here, Robert Burton, joining me. And so he does the voice because he's also an anchor at a competing station. And then, we do all this anchor talk. And then in the end, I'm like, not for real, though, what you trying to eat? And he's like, I'm trying to get that quarter pounder, the quarter pounder slaps or whatever. And so the contrast between how anchors talk to the extreme and how we talk among friends was really funny. It was funny because I kept on putting off recording that TikTok because I'm like, either this is going to be really cringy or funny or a mixture of both, which I think it's, when I look at the video, I still cringe, but I chuckle a little bit. And that one, it was almost, fairly soon when a video is going to take off. Like it was just all of these comments and likes. And I immediately knew it was something different. And then a couple days later, the video had racked up like 5 million views on Twitter and, likes. It was crazy.
So, okay, wait, did you always set out like you wanted to do social media? Because I feel like it's hard for you guys, like as journalists. Some people embrace it, others don't like it. Did you and you and your husband are great together. And did is your mom the one that said like, oh, you guys would be awesome on camera together?
Always kind of put that in our, that bug in our ear. But no, we never intentionally set out to do that. Because the thing is, when you're looking from the outside in at all of these influencers and all these people with all these followers, at least for me, it felt like I'm not them, right? Like it was a little intimidating. Like even when I first got on TikTok, I'm like, I totally could not attract the people that they do. Like, I don't know. I remember even posting anything on TikTok, on television, but posting anything on TikTok, the thought of it was just terrifying to me. Because you're putting yourself out there, but also you're competing against all of these, people with millions of followers. So that was never our intention.
That's so funny because you seem like such a natural. It's interesting to see the behind the scenes. And obviously your husband, so Robert Burton, he works for WJLA here in the city, Channel 7. I love your story because you guys actually met at work, which is really typical for a lot of news people end up with other news people. We all work crazy hours. And you guys met down in Little Rock, right? You were on a station together there.
So he was a weekend sports anchor in Little Rock, Arkansas back in 2012. I was going there for a job interview, first job out of college. And I was sitting in the break room with another reporter and in walks this man he says it's a luchador mask, but it looked like a Spider-Man mask, and stumbles on a bike, trips over a trash can, gets up, and hey, what's up? My name is Robert. And the reporter was like, this is our weekend sports anchor. It's like, oh, it's good to meet you. We did not hit it off at first, actually. And then it was one time I made a joke and he was the only one that got it, that we realized, okay, we have a similar sense of humor. And we started dating about 6-7 months later. And then I got a job in DC at JLA, actually, about 18 months later. And then 6 months after that, he ended up getting a job at JLA. So we were working together again. And then I went to Philly. So I'm like running away from him, essentially.
But of course, in the meantime, you get engaged, you get married. What was it? Okay, so was it tough working together and dating? Because, at first when you started out, you guys were friends, you worked together, you weren't in a romantic relationship. But then you come to JLA and you're full on together. How was that?
It wasn't weird at all. And I think it was because he was a sports anchor, right? So we worked in different departments, opposite shifts for most of our relationship, actually. So we never ran into each other at work. You know what I mean? So it was close enough, but far apart enough that our worlds didn't, overlap too much. But like you said, you understand the crazy schedules, you understand breaking news, the stress of working in this environment. So what we needed to have on the same page, was enough.
But how does it go? Like, do you two compete? I mean, you don't seem like you compete, but at the same time, I mean, you both have pretty big personalities. I mean, how is that behind the scenes?
So here's what's interesting. I'm much more introverted than he is. In fact, he's not introverted at all. He's, a million friends. He could go out every day of the week. For me, it's like 3 core girlfriends. And I can't, my worst nightmare is going somewhere where I don't know anybody. I am not like a social butterfly in that sense at all.
Wow.
So we're very different in that respect. And so it works. We balance each other out. So no, we don't compete at home. On air we do, but not at home.
I know you guys are fun. You kind of make that an ongoing joke. I mean, I think we're winning, aren't we, in the ratings? I mean, sorry, Robert.
I'll your apologies to him.
Sorry. I think we're winning.
But they're a worthy contender. But
yeah, they're there. But I mean, this month we're winning the race. Sorry, Robert. Okay, but tell me about your time in Philly. I mean, you came back to DC from you were at a station in Philadelphia that was a really big deal. I mean, you were super well known there. You were beloved. I mean, people like it. Of course, your husband's here, so it has to be difficult. I don't even know how you guys make that. I mean, when would you see each other? Just weekends?
It was weekends. And then keep in mind, the first 2 years we had opposite days off. So we would always see each other when the other person was just coming out of work or just going into work. I don't know. I would never do that again. I don't know. So I moved to Philly 2 months before we got married. So the entirety of our marriage was long distance up until December. So 4.5 years of our marriage.
Wow.
I don't know what I was thinking, but like you said, it was a really, really good station. So what drew me was the station. And then Philly, I like the people there a lot. You hear about Eagles fans and sports fans there. They're very, very loyal. And the great part about that is that even while I'm here, they'll tune in and watch. And to me, it just blows me away that I still get that kind of support. So it was a great station, great people, but the long distance was really, really tough. I'm not sure how much longer we could have done that because it takes a toll.
Oh my God. It's so hard to be emotionally connected. And yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. For everybody that's listening to you here in DC, what was the station in Philadelphia?
It was 6ABC, WPVI.
WPVI.
It's considered like a legacy. They're a really good station.
So, I mean, obviously you had worked in this market. You knew all the big personalities at Channel 5. I mean, I think you took you're coming up on your 1-year anniversary. You took a tough gig. I mean, you followed some very heritage anchors. So when you got the call that you were going to be on, Good Day, that this was, the role, were you apprehensive? I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to come into a place where people get so used to a personality and they love them. Tell me, was that a big factor, or you were like, you know what, I'm up for the challenge?
No, I was a little apprehensive at first because of that reason. You got to think, I worked in Philly, in DC, 2014 to 2016. So I also look up to and still admire, the anchors that were here. So I got it from a viewer perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At first, and even up until the days leading up to the debut, I mean, I was really nervous because I knew I had some big shoes to fill. And the anchors that were here before, we connected. They reached out to me, and like I said, we've met in the field before, and so it was nice to have that support and that love. So in that sense, there was no animosity or anything like that. But still, like I said, Allison's very, very well respected.
Absolutely. Tell me about this. Were you worried about, because I think chemistry is so big, right? I think, one of the reasons Allison, I mean, she's a fantastic human being, but then she and Steve had great chemistry, Tucker. So how has that been, like, in developing chemistry? Have you guys all hung out? Like, because you seem like you have great chemistry with Wisdom, which is, which I love Wisdom, but that's amazing. I mean, so what did you do? Did you just decide I'm going to be myself, or did you decide like I'm going to try to like, go out and hang out with these guys and get a rapport outside? What'd you do to build that? Because it seems pretty natural now.
It didn't take much conscious effort, honestly. The only thing that took some getting used to is that here, this station, especially the morning show, allows you to have a little more personality, right? At my last station, and at most places, but especially my last station, it was much, much more structured. There wasn't a lot of time for crosstalk. And in fact, that was discouraged. It's like, let's keep this thing moving, jam-packed. Here, what took some getting used to was, oh, we have time to talk and we can talk about this. I mean, you've even caught me by surprise sometimes, like, oh, we can say that on air.
They let us get away with too much. I mean, they really, that's why I love Fox. It is a place where they let you have personality, which is very rare.
Right. Yeah. And that's what, in a good way, that's what took some getting used to. Like, hey, it's okay to loosen up a little bit. One thing that Tucker, especially Tucker, but Tucker and Steve have is that they have a sense of humor. They're very sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'm very sarcastic. So in that sense, it was very natural. I was able to, once I was watching from a distance too, but once I kind of knew how they joked around, it was just a matter of just jumping right in and doing a lot of what I would do behind the scenes with my husband at home, personally, just doing it on TV, right? So it wasn't that hard, but like you said, chemistry is huge. The viewers can tell when you don't have chemistry or when you don't really like each other and you're faking it. And thankfully that I would say within a matter of like hours from my first day, it was like, okay, I'm good.
Okay, well, that's a good feeling. Yeah, because that's hard. You worry about. Yeah, it's going really well. I mean, you can tell. You guys can tell that you have a rapport, which is, to your point, huge, huge, huge. So tell me, you grew up in Rhode Island. You're a New England girl. You grew up in Rhode Island. Did you any brothers and sisters?
2 sisters, 1 brother, all older than me.
Okay.
My oldest sister's 12 years older than me. My brother's 10 years. And then the other sister's 15 months older than me.
Oh, okay. So you two were like you're the babies.
Yeah. It's a type of like sibling relationship where you like hate each other at first when you're younger. And then you're like, you know what? You're not so bad. So now we're super close.
Now, any of them in media or no?
My sister is actually a radio host. She's in Cleveland. Radio host. So she does like 3 hours of radio every morning from 6 to 9. So my mother's like switching back and forth, watching me on TV and then listening to her on the radio.
Oh my God. Tell me what your parents were like growing up. Were they, did you guys do a lot as a family? What did they have any interest in media? Were there jobs in media?
My dad was an auto mechanic. He owned his own auto shop. And my mom, she was an entrepreneur. So she was a realtor. She owned a restaurant. She owned a telecommunications business. So she was kind of all over the place in a good way. And we come from a family that's got a great sense of humor. Like none of us are really sensitive, right? We can dish it. We can take it. I will say they're very like, how do I say it? They can put on a good show. So like my mom's family is really big on spoken word and performing and things like that. In fact, growing up, I wanted to be a singer. That's a whole other story.
You're an amazing singer, by the way. Your videos are on YouTube. I don't know what holiday party you were at. There's some DJ like introducing you and he's like taking forever. And then you like bring the house down. I'm like, she could have been, did you ever pursue that before you became a reporter and journalist?
First off, I would love for that video to be taken down. I'm in Little Rock, and I'm like, how much do I need to pay y'all? But no, I actually seriously considered it for a long time, up until I was like 15, 16.
Really?
And so I realized it wasn't really my thing. So I would do these singing competitions. I'm very competitive, especially if there was like money, a cash prize involved. And there was one competition that I took part in when I was 16. It was like 30 contestants starting out. It was a Spanish competition, singing competition. And I ended up winning first place. It was like a $3,000 prize, a demo, and something else. And I just wanted the money. Like, I was like, can I just give the demo, the recording time to like the second place winner? And that's when I realized I was in it for the competitive part of it, but I don't like songwriting. I don't like rehearsing. I just don't enjoy it. And it wasn't until this was confirmed when I met a friend of mine who went to Berklee College of Music, which is top school, one of the top schools in the world. And I was like, yeah, no, we feel our commitment here is very different. Like, mine's just friends with benefits. Yours is like you're married and you plan on spending the rest of your life together.
Yeah, you're like, I'm not learning a bunch of instruments. I don't give a damn about the pitch. What's the cash prize? Like, that's all I want.
Exactly. So I'm glad that out like early on, right? As opposed to like in my 30s or 40s.
Now, were you like an athlete? I mean, I love the competitive side. I mean, I'm surprised you're not like a professional gambler. I mean, it seems like you really like. Did you do a lot of sports? Like, what else did you compete in?
I did debate in high school. So I went to a lot of schools. I went to 5 high schools though. So my biggest regret, I'm also not very athletic, but I wish I would have been more involved in extracurriculars. I did debate for a while. That's very, very competitive. And outside of that, no, I wasn't very involved in anything outside of that.
Now, why 5 high schools? 5 high schools.
Oh gosh, it's some. I mean, a lot of it's like financial. So I went to 3 high schools in Rhode Island, 2 high schools in Ohio, because we were trying to move there. But 4 high schools in 1 year. Yeah, 4 high schools.
Wow.
And here's what's interesting. It was almost like a training ground because one of the high schools I went to, Shaker Heights High School, it's actually the high school in Little Fires Everywhere, the Hulu series.
Okay.
But my sister and I were like the minute we got there, I mean, popular, right? The 2 popular girls. And then I went to another high school in Rhode Island a few months later, and I was spending lunch in the bathroom stall. So it was like, I could not make any friends. And then like the theater kids took me in, and they were the best. But it helped me learn that a lot of times it's not you, right? It's the environment you're in, and you make the best of it, and you find your crew. And sometimes it may take a while, but you make the best of it. You have fun. But it taught me how to adapt and how to make the most of where I am. And in this business, you know how it is when you start out, you go to like the middle of nowhere and you might not know anybody and you're not making a lot of money. And for me, like, all I need is a good coffee shop. If I can watch some movies, got some good books, I can make it work. So I can adapt really easily. And going to 5 high schools teaches you that.
Wow. Yes. Oh my God. It must have been traumatic at the time. Like, because those years are so, I don't know, everything's a huge deal. Right. And then, of course, you realize 10 years later, you're not friends with any of those people. But
Right. And then, boy, how the table turn, right? Like, it's hard to predict in high school where anybody's going to end up. Right.
Wow.
And you make such a good point. In high school, you feel like it's just the end of the world if things aren't going well.
Did you and your sister like resent your parents during that? I mean, every teenager resents their parents, but were you guys really mad that you had to? I mean, were they moving for their business, or were they separated or together? How did it kind of?
They were moving together. My dad was trying to sell his business. In the meantime, my family, my mom, my sister, and I went to Ohio while he was trying to sell it. He ended up not being able to do it, so we came back. So we understood that they were trying their best, and things panning out. For me, I think I was just kind of, honestly, just tired. Like, I remember by got to the 5th high school, I knew the drill. You go into the first class, everybody's looking at you like, who's this girl? I was just tired. And I was just ready to settle in and find my group and be friends with that group for an extended period of time. So like, when I see kids who've been with who've known their friends since like elementary school through high school, I'm like, how amazing must that be? But there's pros and cons to everything, right? Like, I have such a mix of friends, diverse in every sense of the word, because I've been to so many high schools. I just don't know what high school reunion I'd go to.
You've got 5. You've got 5 to go. You pick the one with the best food. You're like, you can go to Now, where did you go to college? And you were in a sorority.
No, you know what? So I did not pledge.
Oh, okay.
I had, though. You probably heard me say that. I wish I had, but I did not pledge.
Okay. And you say it again. You went to what college?
Kent State University.
And so you go, and is that when you decided, okay, so obviously you decide you're not going to be a singer. Was it in college you had decided, okay, I want to be a journalist, I want to be a reporter? What was that, or you weren't sure then?
I wasn't. I was an exploratory major my first semester. So aside from being a singer, I was really, my backup kind of always was, and my interest was always in being an attorney. And then I realized, this is not going to make me very happy. You know, I talked to a lot of attorneys. I did my research. And for me, I knew it wouldn't be fulfilling for me. And that the TV shows can be deceiving. So,
yes.
Right? Yeah. Like, don't get it twisted. It's not always like that.
It's such an intense job. Oh, no, thanks.
Yeah, I kind of love it. And you got to be willing to put in some serious hours. But so I was an exploratory major in college. And it was a friend of mine who just texted me, and I still remember where I was when I saw that text. He said, you know, you'd be a really good journalist. And I had never thought about that before, which is crazy because like my dad was really, really, like he was a history buff, news buff, would watch Univision, Spanish news, and was just really, really into it. And I think because it was such a part of my life, I never considered it as a career. And it all made sense, right? Like I like writing, I like storytelling. I'm not exactly camera shy, but it's even better when I'm the messenger and not necessarily the message. So, and then also like advocating, right? And I say advocating because I come from like an immigrant background. So I understood how important it was to be informed and to, you know, be connected to resources and things like that. So I saw the practical and important side of news, and it all clicked. The minute I got into it, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not? I wish I would have chosen this earlier.
Yeah, right. You had that moment. And so, and okay, and the background too of your family, your father, that's how you're a Spanish speaker, right? Your father.
So both my parents, they were born and raised in the Dominican Republic. About half of my family is still there.
Yep.
And we would every summer for 2.5, 3 months. It was not our choice, but I'm so glad they did it. For them, it was just a matter of being connected to family, speaking the language, being familiar with the culture. We didn't go to like the resorts till we were much, much older. Like
you're like going to, yeah, no, you're not going to any of the things that most people see, right? You're like living the true Dominican life.
Right, because they're like, people will tell me like, yeah, Punta Cana. I'm like, I'm not familiar with Punta Cana. I went to a different world.
What a shock going back and forth. I mean, that must have been, you are in Rhode Island, you see all the extravagance of America. Then you go back to the Dominican. I mean, wow. But what a great lesson, but.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, and it was kind of a variety of experiences there, right? Whereas, on my dad's side, they just kind of had the basics, right? So like no running water and you go and get the buckets outside. And it was funny because like my grandmother would try to like warm up the water for us so we wouldn't have to like splash cold water on us in the bathtub. And my parents were like, no, they're going to do it the way everybody does it. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to accommodate them because they're from the US. Whereas on my mom's side, they had a little more resources, but we got to see it all, right? And as a kid, we still had a good time. We got into mischief, right? We did things that I'm like, Mom, how did you? I mean, the things we got into because there wasn't like video games, at least that my family had, that we could just sit at home and play all day, right? Or like my dad's side, they didn't have air conditioner. So you went out, out into the fresh air because you're burning up in the house.
And so you were probably, you and your sister, siblings, cousins, you guys are probably walking, hanging out, going in town, kind of independent, whereas now, I mean, everybody watches their, like they won't let their kids go a half mile. Meanwhile, you've been out for like 6 hours.
Exactly. No cell phone, right? No way of getting us. No, it was great. I mean, I would love to do that with my kids, but I don't know that my husband would let me.
No, I grew up in rural Maine. I totally know. Like, people don't believe the stories like of my childhood. Like, I mean, you would never do this, but like on Friday nights, our big excitement is we would go to the town dump and they would feed the bears, and like all these bears would come out and eat the trash. People are like,
Oh, girl, you were just fine in DR.
so I'm like, oh, I can handle DR. Are we killing our own chickens tonight or not? Oh yeah, we would go get an ice cream and we would watch all the black bears that they had baited eat the trash. It was like a huge deal. We thought it was huge.
No, those are the best stories to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. So did Robert grow up totally different? Did he grow up like kind of middle class America?
Yeah, we have very different upbringings. And it's funny because we joke about it all the time. So he grew up Southside Chicago up until he was like 12, 13. And then they moved out to the suburbs. And yeah, I'm like, no, I didn't experience that you did with your family.
Yeah.
It's a little different. But yeah, I mean, we just laugh about it now.
It works. Okay, you've had some big moments on television. One, you moved back here, your car was stolen. That was crazy. Were you like crapping your pants? You have this like beautiful vehicle. And I don't even, what was the deal? This guy did he like make a replica of your key fob? How did he just like literally went up, beeped it, got in your car and drove up?
I will tell you, before I say the story, even now, because of the way he was able to steal my car, there is no like surefire solution to prevent it from happening again. I'll just say that again, especially if you have a push to start car. So I parked outside of my house in DC on the street instead of the garage because I was going to go upstairs and get my husband real quick. I bring him down. About an hour later, my car's gone. And I'm confused because I'm like, all my tickets are paid. This is legal parking. So you're like checking all the boxes. And then you're like, well, my car just got stolen.
I'm like, you must have been like, oh my God. But they actually managed to get it back. Like the police department gets the car back. Was anything missing? What was missing?
Well, I'll say real quick, I do not recommend this, and my husband was upset with me for a while over this. I was able to track my car. I saw it on the move on an app. So I was like, let's go. Let's go get this car. Obviously, right? And then he was like, absolutely not. We're going to the police department. So in hindsight, would I have still done it? I don't know. But finally, we did get a hold of the car. And fortunately, when I went upstairs real quick to get my husband, I took my laptop with me, everything expensive that I would leave in the car. And they stole my mail. I had some mail in there. They stole my passport. They stole my Fox 5 gear. And can you believe they stole my seaweed? I'm like,
they're bougie robbers. Bougie robbers.
I'm like, I see organic food, the most nutritious on the planet. So that one hurt me the most because I'm like, yo, the seaweed is not cheap. But yeah, I managed to get the car back unscathed.
What a scary experience, though. Thank God you weren't in it. I mean, these carjackings are terrifying.
So I have a fob, and they have a device that picks up the signal from your fob. Yeah. And so they pick it up, and it almost like records that. And they were able to remotely unlock my car, hop in, and start it up like it was nothing. Just like that.
Wow.
And the car dealer, I was like, the car maker, like, hey, so this happened. What do I do?
Oh, they were like, nothing.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
So, yeah. Garage.
Okay, and then I'm going to totally mutilate the pronunciation of this health. What was the health thing that you discovered on air, too, that you ended up having?
Girl, you have done your research. Wow. You could just call it, because you're going way back. Rhabdo is the short name for it. I think it's rhabdomyolysis, I believe. I haven't said it in a while. Rhabdo, yeah.
What is rhabdo? I had never heard of that.
So typically CrossFitters get it, or people who do like Soul Cycle and go super hard, right? So I decided to get a personal trainer for the first time because I wanted to just get my life. And I started working out with this guy. He knew I was new to this thing. Like I go up a flight of stairs and I'm winded. And we were just going at it. And I was telling him like, hey, like this feels a little uncomfortable. It's fine. Like just push through it. That's how you know it's working. By the end of the day, my arms, it was hard to extend them completely, just slightly. And as the days progressed, 2, 3, 4 days, it was getting more and more restricted. By Friday, that was a Monday, by Friday, the furthest I could extend it was this much. And they were swollen. Like I would say maybe 150%.
Oh my
It was
God.
that. And I went to our nurse, who was a reporter at our station, and this was in Philly. I was like, do you think, is this concerning to you? The problem? And she was like, you need to go to the emergency room now. And I was like, okay. So I go to the emergency room, and I knew it was a problem when the nurse was going to draw my blood, lifted my sleeve. And he goes, oh damn. I mean, I'm sorry. He could not filter his reaction.
Oh my God.
When he saw how weak my arm was. Long story short, their concern was that it would grow so much that they would have to basically cut into it to allow for more room for it to finish expanding. And what it is basically you can work out so much that, you know, your muscles break down normally when you're working out. That's
Sure.
the point. So much breakdown of the muscle protein that it clogs your kidneys, all that protein. And so it can shut down your kidneys. And just for some perspective, 1,000, just think of the number 1,000. 1,000 is the official diagnosis of rhabdo. 3,000 is severe rhabdo. I was at 54,000.
Holy God.
And
were you freaking out at that point? Like
they had no idea how my kidneys didn't shut down. I mean, I was there for 5 days. The numbers wouldn't budge at first. And then they're pulling out textbooks because it's still relatively rare. But yeah, after 5 days and all this stuff, but I was nervous for a while.
I would have been very nervous. I mean, I'd never heard of that. And was it painful?
Not really, actually. It was just uncomfortable, but it wasn't painful.
So how does that, I mean, is that sort of like a rare one-off thing, or do you have to be very conscious? Sounds like you can go hard really quick. So do you have to be very careful now?
Well, I'm pretty much good now. It's just a matter of like actually listening to my body and not someone else over me. Because my thing was I didn't want it to look like I was being too soft, right? Like, oh, you know, this is too much. I'm out. And it wasn't that. It was my body telling me this is too much too soon. And I didn't listen to it. So now I tell the personal trainer, hey, we're going to have to take a couple steps back here. And that's what I would say to a lot of people. In fact, I heard a lot of stories from people who said the same thing. It wasn't CrossFit. It wasn't SoulCycle. It was, I had a personal trainer who pushed me too hard.
Wow. God,
And
that's
this is
scary.
where yeah. So just listen to your body and get a good personal.
It's interesting too, because, you know, everybody looks so different on TV than they are in real life. But I actually read too that you're only 5'4", and it's so funny to me. You look like you're 6'1", which I don't know if that's a compliment. Probably not.
It's funny you mentioned that because we did a segment today where we all had to stand up, and I was like, wow, I am really short. And a viewer tweeted out, Jeannette looks like the child of the family. Yeah.
I mean, you seem like a woman with great self-confidence, but, you know, I mean, it's hard. How do you know that? Does it bother you when people comment on your appearance? I mean, you guys get everything. I mean, Angie Goff has done a lot on this, on people commenting on what she wears and how she looks. How do you take that when people have a lot to say probably about, and we'll talk about your hair, which was very brave of you, but how do you deal with all that?
I don't, you know, I'm fortunate in that I don't get a lot of negative comments really at all. Obviously, even the few that you get, it still stings. But my philosophy has long been since Little Rock, like if you live by the compliments, you'll die by the criticism. So I just kind of stay level, right? because it's really, it can be a roller coaster in this business, right? I'm sure you get it. You get compliments about how great you look or how great your hair is, and then you'll have someone who says something completely out of left field, and it knocks you out for the rest of the day. And suddenly you're questioning yourself.
Yeah.
And I just decided to get off that roller coaster because it's exhausting.
Talk to us about your hair. You know, we know with black women have such a journey with hair. Oh my God. It is the amount of money and time. So I guess all these years for your hair, had you always had a weave? Did you wear wigs? Like, and what prompted that? Was that a news director telling you, well, you know, you can't have your natural hair? How did that hair journey start?
Some news directors are pretty, it's implied. Others make it very clear. You will not go on air with curly hair. Obviously that's a problem in itself, but it's one thing for them to provide the money, which is a lot, in order to maintain the image that they prefer, which is straight hair. But then when you have to cover it yourself, that can also get costly. So then the other option is then you just straighten your own hair over and over again, and then eventually it just breaks and falls off. So it's a no-win situation, right? For me, I knew that I had to have my hair straightened, and I did it on my own hair after coming out of a weave, because I was just sick and tired of paying all this money for a weave. You can pay anything from like $200 to $600 every 5 weeks, every 5 to 6 weeks. It can get very expensive.
It is I don't know. It's so hard for black women. I really, for women of color, I give you so much credit because that's a fortune.
And it's, you know, it's a sensitive topic too, right? So you're putting all of this into it, and then, you know, your hair is obviously a part of you, and it's very sensitive. And so then I took out the weave. I did my own hair, and that lasted about a year until it broke off. And then I had to go back into a weave. So, and then there's always this anxiety when you go on vacation, where if you rock your natural hair, is my hairstylist going to cancel when I come back and I got to go to work the next day? So you're nervous about, I got to be camera ready when I get back because I won't be able to go on air if my hair's curly. So when I got here, I decided, and my husband had long been pushing me to just wear my natural hair. He wasn't a fan of the weave, mostly because he was just like, what's the big deal just wearing your own hair? You know, he just didn't understand all this time and effort. And I brought it up on a TikTok that I had no idea would blow up. Someone had asked me, why don't you wear your hair curly? And I said, I'm terrified of it. Like, the idea of wearing my hair curly out in public, much less on television, is terrifying. And it resonated with a lot of people. And then I heard from the parents who said, you know, my white and black parents, my biracial daughter I want her to embrace her curls, and I would love for her to see someone like you on TV wearing her hair curly. And that's when I was like, oh. I do believe you should have the freedom to wear your hair however you want, but it sends a message when you embrace it in its natural state or as close to. And then I decided I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and do it. When I tell you the day before, I legitimately had a nightmare that I took the bonnet off and it was just a disaster. I was nervous because I'm like, that's the thing. There will be viewers who say, girl, you look beautiful no matter what. And then there are those viewers, right, who will criticize. And because more than anything on me, my hair is the thing that I'm most sensitive about, I was not going to be ready for any criticism that would come my way, right? And it went surprisingly well. I was shocked. I mean, here, I put a call out on TikTok and social media for people to chime in on Twitter, #GoodDayDC, share your pictures, your stories. And they said our web traffic and live streams went up like 2-3-fold from people tuning in. Which was I was pleasantly surprised to see that. Yeah. And I wish I had done this. How much money I could have saved.
You're like, oh my God, I literally would have been $25,000 richer. Oh.
Right. I will say though, on that, we still have a long way to go. And I recognize that my hair texture I would say it's much easier to come out with than it is for a tighter curl, right? Tighter curl pattern or kinkier curl pattern. And I recognize that with viewers that they were like, hey, we love to see your hair, but we'd also love to see further to that side of the spectrum. And I hope we can see more of that as well.
What a great thing for you to do. And was everyone at the station supportive? I mean, did you bring it up to the producers, or did the producers watch and say, hey, we should do this?
Yeah, that's how it went. It was supposed to be, remember, TikTok is its own world. So I'm like, this is between my TikTokers and me.
No.
And they here. And they were like, hey, if you're comfortable, we'd love to. And I was a little, I shouldn't regret it is too strong of a word. But leading up to the day, I was like, gosh, what have I done? Because there was no going back once we publicized it. But I'm glad we did that.
Oh my God. Yeah. You look amazing. And I think that's so brave, and more, hopefully more women of color just keep following that, and news directors, because you look amazing. It's so terrible that people still make those judgments, and.
Yeah. Crazy that it still happens. Yeah.
How do you balance? Does social media get in your head? I think with you, when you got hired and people talking about you, a lot of people talk about how great your social media is, and sometimes that's a lot of pressure. I feel like in some ways you have to carry the entire station. It's like Jeannette will go viral. It's like. Does it get in your head, or do you enjoy it? Because there's a lot of conversation around social media and the toxicity about it.
That's a good question. Here's the thing with social. I try to use it as best as I can as an asset to what I do. So a lot of what I share on social media, it'll be behind the scenes, me at the station, or talking about mentoring or imposter syndrome or confidence. Like, it's things, at least for me, my goal is to either be, or all three, informational, entertainment, or what's the other one? Or inspirational. Yeah. So those three. And I find when I hit one or all three of those, it helps the station, right? I think more now than ever, I think anchors should be relatable, right? And I think it helps the product. It helps us when our viewers feel like they can relate, like you're being vulnerable, or you're passing along whatever gems you've picked up along the way. That said, I've had people ask me, like, would you ever do social media full time? Absolutely not. One, I love my job.
Yeah.
But it is something I like to do on the side, because I might post, a couple, 3 days in a row, and then ghost for like 3 weeks. It's kind of an add-on to what I do. It's not something that I could do full time, or that I like having deadlines with. Like, I did this campaign where I had to have deadlines, and I was like, oh my gosh, this just sucks all the fun out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a little more fun for me that way.
You brought up imposter syndrome. Do you ever, it's hard to believe someone like you would ever have that. Do you have that, or do you just help other people by mentoring them through that?
I struggled with that for a really long time. Being first generation, so, my parents, like I said, immigrants, came here in the 70s, 80s. And I was first generation to go to college. So a lot of the things you're experiencing, your family is for the first time. So your parents are there to support you, but they don't have a lot of knowledge about how things work. And so in a sense, you feel like you're at a disadvantage, or like you don't belong, or you don't see a lot of people who look like you. And what imposter syndrome is that you feel like you're going to be found out, like you're not qualified to be here, and someone's going to call you out. And this can happen, honestly, people of color, women in general. It's any group of people that is in a minority in any sense of the word, right? For me, it was being a woman of color, being first generation. And you just have this nagging paranoia that you're going to be called out. And when you're in a public medium, even more so, right? Like, as a viewer, going to be like, now what in the world is this woman doing on my television screen? And I struggled with that, especially in Philly. You mentioned 6ABC, which is, one of the top stations in the country. You have all these Ivy League grads. And, coming from my background, I went to college. I almost want to say kind of on a whim. We didn't think we'd be able to afford it. And it was because of the generosity of a dean there. I was going to drop out my junior year. he ended up finding the funds to pay for the rest of my schooling.
Wow.
And so you're just lucky to even be in the presence of your coworkers, right? And it was through mentorship, finding a mentor who the way she puts it is holds a mirror up to you and shows you in reality who you are, as opposed to your distorted image. And she said, what you view as disadvantages and shortcomings are actually your advantage. You know how to hustle, you know how to make it work, you know how to connect to people. And those are the things I pass along. I don't struggle with it anymore, but I pass along to other people. Typically it's women who, you know, buy into this image, right? Because looks can be deceiving.
Well, it's
and
hard.
that's not.
I mean, you and I grew up at bear dumps. You know, it's very. You're like, I'm at the bear dump, and then you know you're at the Emmy Awards, and you're just like, oh my god. And then when you do work with a lot of people who go to Harvard and grew up with a lot of advantages, which is good for them, but it is a weird reckoning of like, okay, I should be here, but also, you know, but there's still this girl in me that, you know, was in the Dominican in this. It is a funny thing to work through.
Yeah, it's so true. Reckoning is a good word. Like it just kind of hits you in the face and your experiences collide with everybody else's experiences and you feel like it's got to be one or the other. And what's often accepted and praised is their experience. And I wish people would realize that often it's like the unbeaten path, the non-traditional background. Aren't those the people who end up being not just the most interesting, but connect the best with others, right? Because they went off, you know, they didn't go by the book.
Well, your parents gave you the freedom to grow. And lots of times, you know, Harvard kids, nothing against, I mean, everybody has issues, doesn't matter your background, but lots of times like they have so much pressure to be an image or, you know, I'm sure you have very wealthy friends too, you know, you grow up in that, there's pressure to keep an image, you know, versus if you grow up like we did, there isn't any image, you know, there's like, there's no one to impress. Yeah.
Everybody's trying to figure it out, right? We've got too much going on to try to keep an image.
Yeah.
So,
all right. I want to do a rapid fire of questions with you. Okay. What's the goal? Is the goal to win an Emmy? Is the goal to replace Nora O'Donnell? What's the goal?
I love DC. I've always wanted to come back here. We have a lot of really well-respected folks here in DC in the TV media. I would like to be among those, right? Where it's not just, you know, Jeannette makes me laugh, you know, Jeanette's relatable, which is huge, but also, hey, like, and I know this sounds cheesy, but, you know, if I want to know what's going on, if I want some reassurance in the noise of TV news now, she's the exception to the rule, at least in their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's harder and harder to be that news person. And for me, social media aside, I want to be someone that people say, hey, all jokes aside, she's the person I would turn to that I really respect. She's among like the greats or at least close to it.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, you're on the way, so you're doing it. Tell me, is there a TikTok that you're too scared to post that you and Robert have come up with that you want to post?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh man, there was one the other day and I was like, we totally can't do that.
I feel like something sexy from you two and you guys are like, oh, we can't, but.
Brought that up actually. So I really point to keep my stuff very much PG, right? Like there's no cursing. As clean as possible. That has its limitations. And the longer you're clean, the more shocking it is when you stray from that. So people wanted us to do like the anchor voice in the bedroom. And I'm like, that would be great. We cannot do that.
Jeannette, that would be so good. Oh my God. I could just see, this would be so good X-rated. Darn it.
I know. Like a TikTok only ads, but except we can't.
Okay, Jeannette, tell us a hobby that we don't know that you have. We know that you have a beautiful voice, but what else? I mean, are you sitting at home knitting sweaters and we don't know it?
I think people know this already. I really like dancing salsa and bachata. That's like mostly salsa. So like if I could go out every weekend, I'm not the type to just go to a club, stand there with a drink in my hand. It's just not my thing. I want to go out and dance. And salsa and bachata, I just really, really enjoy. That's my little hobby.
All right, tell me the last time you were embarrassed.
Ooh, like this wouldn't count, but like, so when I did Diana Ross, when I tell you that was absolute torture for me, like, I don't think you understand.
For the Halloween show.
I mean, it's not a good embarrassing moment. For me, it felt weird. So much so that I posted it on TikTok and Instagram, all of us. And I had to take it down. Like the next day, I'm like, I cannot stand to see myself like this. Like, it's just so weird. Like, how I aspire to be. Like, owning the sexiness like that, totally not me. Like, really? I was like, Mom, you have to watch this. It was so cringe for me. So cringe.
Okay, yeah. Tell me, what do you and Robert fight about the most?
I'm really, really big on quality time. He's big, the 5 love languages, right?
Yep.
Quality time. The other one, his is, I'm not going to name all 5 of them because I'm going to forget one. His is like touch, right? He's a physical guy. And remember I told you he's very, very social. And for me, it's like, well, why don't we just spend time together instead? And that's what for as long as we've known each other, right? His thing is like, can I go out with my friends? I'm like, no, but can you just stay with me? Because like, remember, I got like 3 good girlfriends, and outside of that, I'm not really trying to kick it. So yeah. That's what we always go, we butt heads on.
Robert is your bestie. He's your best friend as well, and you want to hang out.
You know what's so funny? I told him the other day, I was like, I feel like you're the cool kids at that school where I would like spend my lunch in the bathroom, and I'm just trying to be cool. Like, I just want to hang out. Can you just hang out with me? I'm hoping, I can just be a part of the cool kids, and hang out with them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Final question for our audience, because they love you and they loved your hair journey. What do you think is the next kind of like thing that you're nervous about that you're going to reveal? Do you think you're going to start dressing super sexy? Like, we're going to just see you in tight skin bodysuits, or what? What do you think?
Wow, you have some great questions.
Because I think, I loved that, because I thought that was like, to be honest, I feel like that was an Oprah moment. Like when Oprah, okay, this is a bad analogy, but you'll appreciate this. But when Oprah hauled out all that chicken fat, like it was like her, truly like peeling back, taking off the mask, right? Like when you did that, I was like, this is a huge moment, because it just resonated. So
yeah.
I'm like, all right, now she's got to do something more.
I know what it's going to be. I would hate for people to see how not athletic I am. Like, if we ever actually did a sport on television, it would be really bad. Like, when I shoot a ball, I pop my back leg up. Like, it's almost like a prance when I shoot. So my husband's just like, you will lose all credibility in every category if people see you do anything athletic.
Okay, that would be nightmares, because you'll do an interview with LeBron James and it will have to be like a shootout, and it'll be like Miss News Lady goes viral for horrible shooting.
Oh, absolutely, and they'd be like, yikes! Like, it would be more cringe than funny.
Oh my God. Jeannette Reyes, you're a treat. Thank you for sitting down and being so open. Of course, you're on TikTok, Miss News Lady. Your Instagram is that too, right? Or is it Jeannette Reyes?
MS News Lady. Don't ask me why it's not Mrs. News Lady. I did it before I got married, and so I'm keeping it. It's almost like the last name, right? So yeah, but you are an amazing, listen, every time you come on, especially with Celebrity Dish, like, it's so refreshing, because the stuff you say makes me question if we're going to have a job by the end of the day. It's great. It keeps me on my toes.
Honestly, I swear to God, I have no idea how I still have a Keycard. That is a great name. I cannot believe. I don't know.
It's great. I told myself when I came into this interview, I'm like, she will disarm you. Like, don't let her make you think that you're gonna regret. You're like the Howard Stern, right? Where it's like, did I really just say that?
And I kept it PG. Yeah. I didn't even ask you guys about your sex life. I mean, I really should have. Because you guys seem like is Robert really tall, by the way?
6'4". He's a foot taller than me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like throwing you around in the bedroom. I mean, that's a huge. Just kidding.
Well, he was an athlete in college, so he can go for a while.
See, we knew it would turn Howard Stern. I love it. Jeannette Reyes, you're amazing and fabulous, and everyone's going to love this podcast episode. Thank you for sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me.
You're the best. Okay.